All right. Hey guys, thanks for coming back for another video. I've been getting a whole lot of questions about which detachment is the best one to use with Tyrant Guard, so I thought my second video would be to go ahead and address that question. So a lot of the input I've been getting is that most people want to know why I'm not running Assimilation Swarm, why I'm running Synaptic Nexus as my detachment. And I actually toyed around with Invasion Fleet and Assimilation Swarm before I finally settled on Synaptic Nexus. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's start off looking at Invasion Fleet. First of all, Invasion Fleet has the detachment rule hyper adaptations, which is really good at making the Tyrant Guard a little bit more effective in combat. If you don't know, that's the index detachment, and it gives you basically sustained hits one, or lethal hits, or precision hits for your army. And any of those can help the Tyrant Guard in combat. Also, the stratagem rapid regeneration makes them much more durable, but it only affects a single unit at a time. But again, that 5-up Feel No Pain really does make a unit last a lot longer, especially when they have toughness 8 and 4 wounds. Adrenal Surge can also increase damage output, although, as I've said before, Tyrant Guard aren't really there for damage output. And Overrun can help them get around the table a little bit better, because that Tyrant is going to be killing things, or if they're with the Swarm Lord, he's going to be killing things too. And so you'll probably get a lot of opportunities to use Overrun and get into better positioning. Some of the cons for using them with Invasion Fleet is that rapid regeneration can really only affect a single unit at a time. There's no other significant durability buffs for that unit, and you don't really have any speed buffs for the unit unless you want to count Overrun, which is good, but it won't really help you get into range to charge or get onto objectives in your own movement phase. My thoughts on this, just to sum up, would be that a decent detachment. You can run most things in Invasion Fleet, but I would really only use Tyrant Guard as a single block in Invasion Fleet. I wouldn't run more than one unit, most likely. Next up, we have Crusher Stampede, which has Enraged Behemoths as the detachment rule, but unfortunately, that really only benefits monster models, not monster units. Let me just double check myself. Grab the codex. Yep, each time Tyranid monster model makes an attack. So it's not really helping the Tyrant Guard at all. Crusher Stampede has seen a lot of success lately. It's a really cool, really fun detachment. I like to run monsters, but I don't really see myself running Crusher Stampede anytime soon, just because I don't feel like I've liked the Tyrant Guard and I want to keep using them. Savage Roar can be kind of fun if you are getting into combat. It can make it a little bit harder to deal with the Tyrant Guard unit, since that does affect a unit. Untrammeled Ferocity can also help with your positioning. I noticed in the tournament that I went to with all my Tyrant Guard that the buildings were set up where I couldn't really hide my Swarm Lord or my Hive Tyrant and still be able to get them into a good position later. So I had to expose them, which meant all of my Tyrant Guard units would be able to get shot turn one most of the time. Having the ability to move through buildings will allow you to have a little bit better positioning, especially at deployment, with your Tyrant Guard units and the attached monster that's going with them. Unfortunately, the detachment rule, like I said, doesn't help them any, and you don't really get any significant durability buffs, and no speed buffs here either. So it's not really a good detachment to spam Tyrant Guard, but it wouldn't hurt to have a unit, since they'll still get some benefits, and in Crusher Stampede, you're likely going to be taking a Hive Tyrant anyway. So I wouldn't rule them out, and I don't say that they don't get any buffs, but they're not really the detachment to spam Tyrant Guard. Next up, we have Unending Swarm with the detachment rule insurmountable odds that only affects endless swarm units. I guess the only real pro to this detachment is that Relentless Hunter enhancement can make them the whole unit 2 inches faster, which is pretty cool. But the detachment rule doesn't help them. They don't get any kind of durability buffs, and the stratagems don't affect them at all. So it's not a good detachment for Tyrant Guard. But if you're looking to include one Hive Tyrant and to buff the rest of the army, and it wouldn't hurt to have one unit of Tyrant Guard to go with that Tyrant and keep it alive longer. And if you can make him move a little bit faster to keep up with units of Hormagaunts and whatnot, then that's not a bad thing to have. But again, not a good detachment just for trying to throw a whole bunch of Tyrant Guard down the enemy's throat. Vanguard Onslaught. This one is a very powerful detachment. but not one for using Tyrant Guard. So you have I couldn't think of any pros. I tried. I looked at the stratagems and I didn't see anything that really benefits a unit with some Tyrant Guard in it. If you can think of something, let me know. But I felt that this detachment really just didn't benefit Tyrant Guard at all. They don't fit well into the way that the army plays. They don't benefit from any of the stratagems, and they don't add anything that the rest of the army tends to lack. Like I can see throwing in a Tyrannofex or two into a Vanguard Onslaught army just to add that anti-tank punch that it tends to lack, but Tyrant Guard don't really help with that. As I saw in my events, running even the Crushing Claws with the Neuro Tyrant for that +1 to hit, they still weren't doing any damage even to something as simple as an Exocrine. So I would not look to take Tyrant Guard and a Vanguard Onslaught detachment. But hey, I'm happy if someone can prove me wrong. Um, Assimilation Swarm. Now, this is the big one. Everybody's been asking, why don't I run Assimilation Swarm? And at the beginning of this video, I said that I have tried that in the past. I wasn't running a full 18 Tyrant Guard in that. I was running 12, and it was a lot of fun. And the armies that it worked well against, it worked very well against. I could keep regenerating. I had lots of opportunities to regenerate. It's great value points wise to just add back Tyrant Guard to your army. Um, Instinctive Defense as an enhancement is really powerful. And Parasitic Biomorphology, I also was running that on a Neurotyrant with Tyrant Guard with Crushing Claws because they were getting the +1 to hit, and then between that and Synapse, they got up to Strength 10. And if they kill something, they'll get an extra attack, which is great. And then they should survive long enough to take advantage of that extra attack because you can keep regenerating them. Like I said, they do have plenty of opportunities to regenerate in this detachment, and you can also bring back a model, and that might shorten the distance that you need to move onto an objective or make a charge. So there's lots of pros with Assimilation Swarm. Lots of ways to make the Tyrant Guard units more effective, and it's really a great detachment for them. As far as the cons go, the only major con that I noticed when I played my games with Assimilation Swarm is that you can't regenerate if the unit is wiped out, and you don't really have any buffs to prevent your army from getting wiped out. So the armies that it worked well into with this detachment, it worked very well, like I said. But the armies that had the firepower to take out the Tyrant Guard, I just lost everything, and it did not come close. So there were some pretty big wins, but there were also some pretty big losses. I think Assimilation Swarm is a great way to go 4-2, 5-1 at an event, but there's likely going to be at least one army you come up against that just has your number and can knock out all your Tyrant Guard before you can regenerate them. Um, they also don't do a lot of damage, so even if you're regenerating a lot of Tyrant Guard, yes, they are very durable, but they're not going to kill a lot of stuff on the table, and they're only OC1, so bringing them back doesn't really help you score objectives or help you to take out key units. And they can also be tricky to position all of your units correctly to benefit from that detachment rule. You really need a lot of practice with this. So I do think it is a great detachment for spamming Tyrant Guard. I would never dissuade anyone from taking them in Assimilation Swarm. Absolutely fantastic. And it can be really demoralizing to your opponent when you keep bringing these guys back over and over again. You're like, oh, look, start of my turn, I'm going to bring a Tyrant Guard back. Oh, look, I killed somebody, I'm going to bring a Tyrant Guard back. And these things are so hard to kill in the first place that when you keep bringing them back, it's going to be very frustrating to your opponent. But if you want to see them run really well in Assimilation Swarm, check out Craig from Maelstrom Gaming. His channel has a lot of great info about using Assimilation Swarm, and he did really well at an event, a GT event, with his Assimilation Swarm. I think he went 5-1 or something like that. Did really great. So check out his videos. He's got some great stuff about them. Now, that being said, I do prefer to run my Tyrant Guard in Synaptic Nexus. The detachment rule, Synaptic Imperatives, it can give you one of three benefits. It's basically combat doctrines for Tyranids. One of those is a 5-up invulnerable save for all your units within Synapse range, and they will always benefit from these abilities because they'll always be in Synapse range, right? And another ability is +1 to advance and +1 to charge. And then the last one is +1 to hit in combat. So these abilities are all really good, and they all really benefit the Tyrant Guard. People tend to take a lot of shooting units in Synaptic Nexus, like Zoanthropes, but they don't really benefit from two out of the three Synaptic Imperatives. The Tyrant Guard are one of the few units that really benefit from all three, and you want to take them. And it's great that they can benefit from all three because you can keep using at least one of those in your command phase every turn to hand out to one of your units. Let's see, Reinforced Hive Node makes the unit really tough, especially if you have them in cover. That's something I noticed in a lot of my games. I would start them off all in cover. I was not able to hide them in the last GT because of the way the terrain was, and I always had to expose the Swarm Lord and Hive Tyrant and Neuro Tyrant. But I was able to keep the models, the Tyrant Guard models, in cover, so they always got that cover save. And combining that with Reinforced Hive Node, or as one of my commenters in my last video said, Chitin of Contempt. I like that one. It really makes them a lot more durable. There are a lot of weapons that just aren't eating through that. And they already have a 3-up armor save. I wish it was 2 like it used to be, but we'll take what we can get, right? I think that for their durability, they're pretty cheap points wise, in my opinion, and at least for what they've done for me. And so adding to that durability and having the ability to give everyone a 5-up invulnerable save on a key turn is fantastic. Because there will come a time where you're going to have to expose them, or you're going to have to come up against these ridiculous fusion blaster Tau suits, or whatever all of this AdMech stuff is that can just unload firepower on your units, or Doomsday Arcs. Just things with high strength, high AP that are going to tear through those Tyrant Guard with or without cover and reinforced hive node. Then that 5-up invulnerable save does a whole lot. Let's see what else. They have Synaptic Augmentation. Yeah, okay, so that was the 5-up. And let's see, let's go into some of the cons. Synaptic Augmentation only affects all your units once per game, so you are only using that in one turn, one battle round, I should say, in the game. So you have to use it wisely. If you use it too soon, if you're scared of your opponent's firepower turn 1, you use it and they only get a handful of units to shoot at your guys, and their go turn is basically turn 2 or onwards, then you've kind of wasted that chance to be durable. So there is a risk there. I still don't think it takes as much practice to use that correctly as it takes to use Assimilation Swarm correctly. So still a little bit easier skill-wise there. There aren't a lot of significant buffs to the damage output with Synaptic Nexus. Irresistible will help you with your rerolls to ones to hit and wound, and you can get +1 to hit with your guys. But again, even with all those buffs, Tyrant Guard aren't doing a whole lot of damage. And then another con, it really just feels bad if you've played them in Assimilation Swarm and you know you can get them back to play another detachment where they're dead and they're not coming back. I kind of felt that way. I get it. But like I said, this is what's worked out most effectively for me against all opponents. And it has become my favorite detachment for just spamming Tyrant Guard. They really only need to survive long enough to get your characters, get your Hive Tyrant, your Swarm Lord, your Neuro Tyrant where they need to be effective. I found that getting that Neuro Tyrant into the center of the table and having him surrounded by Tyrant Guard meant that people were mostly ignoring his unit because they were too tough to chew through. There were several times where my opponent said to me, I need to take out that Neuro Tyrant because he keeps overwatching everything, but I know I'm not going to have the firepower to take him out, not with all those Tyrant Guard around. Plus, the Neuro Tyrant isn't easy to take out on its own anyway. So you've got all these tough characters surrounded by all these tough bodyguards. It makes it really hard to score things like Assassinate against this army. And you can choose which unit you need to have that 5-up invulnerable save each turn, depending on how you position your units and where they're going on the table. Also, Hive Tyrants, Neuro Tyrants, and the Swarm Lord, I feel, are more effective in this detachment overall, which adds value to the Tyrant Guard in their ability to keep those characters alive. You can have a Hive Tyrant with -1 damage, or take it with the enhancement to do -1 leadership within 9 inches, and those can really add up on the table. If you've got that -1 damage and you get that character into the middle of the army, you can choose to position him where there's a lot of 2 damage weapons, and he will just survive a long time even after the Tyrant Guard get killed. And the Tyrant can do a lot of damage on his own. The Neuro Tyrant just getting in the middle of the board and being able to keep flaming every single turn is really also very powerful. And this is the only detachment where you can buff that flame that the Neuro Tyrant has. So having Strength 6, AP2 damage to 2d6 hits is on a Torrent weapon is just really, really solid. And being able to overwatch that every turn is fantastic. And also the Swarm Lord benefits from Irresistible Will, being able to reroll those ones to hit and wound. I can't tell you how many times I've taken another detachment and just totally flopped, rolled a whole bunch of ones to hit or ones to wound, and being able to re-roll those ones to hit with a Swarm Lord or a Hive Tyrant really makes a big difference when you need it to. It benefits the Tyrant Guard a little bit, but they were mostly cleanup. They killed some chaff. Anything that was a big target and you need all those hits to connect, re-rolling those ones to hit on a Tyrant and a Swarm Lord really makes a difference. And it had a bigger impact in my games than I anticipated that it would. So that is my synopsis for how to use Tyrant Guard or which detachments they are best in. But I would like to know your thoughts. So if you like this video, please click the like button. And if you have any thoughts on how you run Tyrant Guard, or if you still think that Assimilation Swarm is a better detachment to run them in, feel free to tell me your thoughts. I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Thanks again for checking out this video. I appreciate it. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks. Now I gotta figure out how to actually end this video. Sorry, still new to this.